conversation with both Lasse and Thomas from Hiddenmark. A wonderful piece of wordplay. Hidden Denmark, crossed together, Hiddenmark. Coming together from different backgrounds, bringing to the table a variety and a wide base of both knowledge and experience. Their team forged together all with a dedicated passion of folklore, history, legends, and more than a taste of the unusual, bringing together and sharing more about their culture, exploring and researching across the whole breadth of Denmark, and also producing accessible audio adventure tours. So join me, this is Our Curious World. I came across your guys' work. I came across a post posted on, I think it's Carl Schuker's, the cryptozoologist guy's post. I saw a post about you guys on there. Then I followed the link and I saw you guys do a lot of different stuff. And I was like, I've got to reach out and talk to you. So if you can perhaps tell me a bit about what your group is, what it's all about, and how you guys got together and the kind of things that you cover, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, well, we are 3 people right now doing everything. Basically, me and Lasse, who's here together in the conversation, and one guy called Simon who couldn't be here. But we all do different parts of this project, which started, I guess, a few years ago as kind of an idea of mapping locations in Denmark which were interesting for legendary value or some other kind of attraction. But mainly it ended up being something around legends connected to certain places. And Lasse got abroad because he had like a similar idea, I guess, for doing it.
Yeah, I was thinking of a more local project centered around the southern Zealand area where I live, where I had sort of the same idea. I wasn't sure if it was going to be a map or just a collection of stories posted online with places to go to and what can you say, less known about legends and stuff like that. So I reached out to Thomas and Simon on Instagram, and we had a chat, and we decided to join up.
Yeah, it's really good because that's kind of like a similar journey to myself. I realised that I like local legends, mythology, culture, those stories that are simmering under the surface that people only local seem to know about, and I love that kind of texture that can be brought forward, and particularly when you see people's eyes light up with that imagination, or when it kicks in when they say, "Oh, I live so close to that. Let me go find that out," and that creates such a good vibe.
Exactly, that's kind of the thing, because I was also like, wow, it's not written about very many places, these things, but you can find the books and the articles if you look for it. But it's also about piecing it together and kind of seeing, okay, this legend started here and there, and kind of getting it all together and making it available for people a little bit more. Because exactly, I mean, one example is a place near where we have our family has a summer vacation house. My parents have been going by that area for years and years, and I told them, do you know that there's this cross up on this hill, which is put there for a priest who got stoned back when Catholicism was kind of merging or overlapping into Protestantism. And they never heard about it, and they went basically parallel to that road for years and years, but they never saw the cross because they didn't go one step. So it's kind of like making these kind of things more available to people, making them aware that what's going on around. So,
is that the same? Is that the same story with you, Lasse?
Yeah, sort of. I think I don't really know how I started. I think I've always been an outdoors person and exploring new places. And I think
much more than me.
Well, I live out in the country and have done always. But a couple of years ago, I moved to the island of Bornholm in the Baltic Sea region. It's a part of Denmark which is very far detached from the rest of the country, and it's a place so steeped with folklore, and a local author, Danish Kofod, wrote in a book how every place on Bornholm has a name, because it's a small island, but it has such a rich folklore. And I think when I lived there, I explored a lot of these locations, and I don't know. I think it accelerated an already existing interest into something. I don't know. I could present also online. I started going to these places and really developing photography skills and trying to tell stories on Instagram. So it came naturally to do more with that.
So
it has to be said that Bornholm is really special compared to the rest of Denmark. It's basically, the terrain is completely different from anything you will find.
Oh, right. So describe that to me. How is it different?
It has rocks. The rest of Denmark has no cliffs and rocks. It's mostly chalk and what do you call it? Flint rock. So Bornholm has these majestic cliffs and a lot of forests and not a lot of population compared to other places. So it has a lot of sort of wild areas, even if they aren't that big. It's a very special place, very scenic compared to a lot of other places in Denmark.
All right. So does that bode into the legends? That's a different place?
Yeah, there's a lot of legends that are unique to Bornholm, especially a lot of tales surrounding a race of subterraneans called the Underjordiske, which appear
Subterranean.
Yeah, that's basically the direct translation. But these Underjordiske, they appear in legends and folklore in Sweden and Norway and the rest of Denmark. But on Bornholm, they are everywhere, and they.
So, what's their characteristics?
It's a sort of guardian people of the island who dwell in the rocks and the cliffs, live in the burial mounds like they are known to elsewhere. And basically have their own society. And there's a lot of, local traditions, and don't go play on that hill, and you shouldn't destroy the cliff. That's one thing. And these beliefs are persisting even today. You can find a lot of people, not just old people, but people on Bornholm who might be a good idea not to piss off these subterranean people.
So how do you think those legends got started then? So did people go and do then activities in the legends that then caused like we're not going to do that again? Is that what happened?
Yeah, certainly. There's a lot of legends about someone not respecting them or doing something that they didn't like and ending up missing or insane or just having their farm burned down.
But I think the point is also that I mean, it was like that in the whole country, but Bornholm has just existed for up until now, whereas we have to sometimes really, I mean, even now there's not a grandmother who can tell like a good legend anymore because the chain is broken at some point in most of the country, which is a shame.
It is a shame. We find that here as well. There's a lot of people have lost those links to their culture and their traditions and the kind of things that I hate to word fading out. It's almost like it's very, very small pockets of people might still abide by, but nowhere near the kind of full-on everyone knows that there once was.
Yeah. It's also one of the motivations for doing this for me, also I guess for Lasse and Simon, is to kind of keep this idea alive that, I mean, we're not trying to say that let's revive faith in everything and just believe anything, but I mean, it has a certain kind of value, however you see it, to have a connection to these old stories and legends, and you can see that in how people react when you talk about it.
For sure, I think it's cool to live in an interesting place or in a place that has some history, and it's not just a location on Earth. It's had stories and over. I think a lot of the attraction with legends is that they are usually place bound. So it's not just once upon a time. It's on that hill over there, something happens way back.
And that's how you can map it and also make like directions for people at this, so it becomes living in the landscape. Yeah.
So how long have you say 3 years you've been recording that kind of data?
No, I mean, I don't know how long Lasse has gone with his idea, but I've been kind of collecting these things on a location basis for, A long time,
Okay.
but really like starting to put cases and files together on it. I really started 2 years ago, I guess. Before that, I've had an interest more in case by case things, I guess, also relating to UFOs and cryptozoology as far as it exists in Denmark, which is not that much cryptids. But only like recently, I really got more and more into how these legends actually work, the patterns in them, and how they are spread out. Like some areas of the country will have more of a cluster of this kind of thing, like in the south of Jutland, close to the German border, you have a lot of like fire trees, trees that they were put fire into it as a protection for farms. They also with rocks and mounds, but it was really a lot with trees, much more than the rest of the country. And it's interesting that some of these trees are still also standing there, whereas many trees in general, legendary trees, are actually in the last 20 years, a lot have fallen. So they are the least durable, I guess, of that kind of.
So I was going to say, those particular trees, are they cut down because someone wants to save them from being publicly damaged, or just chopped down as part of a deforestation program? Or?
No. They are. I mean, really, that's here. People we had a preservation program that goes pretty far back, I think, compared to so many countries. So there is. It's not that there isn't a will to preserve these things. There is, but not always the stories are really known, and there's not really a central place where people can go in and see these stories.
Okay.
It's more like this part of Denmark has this tourist webpage, and they will have one story, but more related to the trees, actually, they are fallen either by disease or by storm or things.
Yeah, so, just age, dying out and then starting to rot. So it happens, but it's interesting. Some of these trees, they aren't that old, but they have very old origins, sort of. At least the legends surrounding them. There's an old oak nearby where I live, which can be translated as the rag oak. It's called Gluud. It's one of the most famous eye trees in Denmark. You know, a tree where true branches have regrown together, creating a hole.
Yes.
And there's a lot of magic and folklore associated with them. This tree is one of the most famous ones surviving, but these have been found all over Denmark, and I believe United Kingdom as well. It's sort of similar to coin trees, where leaving an offering of clothes and doing some particular rituals, crawling through the hole, and the tree will heal your disease or some other boon, I think. And there's a lot of rules about these traditions. Doing it on a Thursday night at a full moon or new moon, I forgot, and doing it from a certain position to another, doing it naked, doing it a specific number of times. And a lot of this is basically a fertility cult ritual, which can sort of be traced back to perhaps the Bronze Age. But this tree is no more, I think, at top it's 400 years old. So this is a tradition that has survived. When you've found a new eye tree, there has been traditions attached to it.
Oh, that's really remarkable.
There is also examples actually of some of these legendary trees called, for example, let's say it's an oak tree, but it's called the plague. What is another tree? The plague birch or something, because it used to be a birch, but then it went down and they planted an oak, but the tradition from the same place still continued.
Oh, so it continued to the next one. Okay, I understand.
Yeah. So, but there's a lot of things with trees. There's also these. Actually, it's not birches. I was looking for the word for Lasse Tjørne.
Yeah. I forgot it as well.
Okay.
But it was a place where you buried the plague victims from the different plague cycles that were. and there was a lot of fear connected to them, understandably, because they didn't understand how the disease spread in this. So when you saw these specific trees around in the countryside,
Okay.
people would walk around.
It looks similar to a rowan. I forgot the name.
That's okay. But I guess that's perhaps why the tree was planted, to be that kind of natural warning.
Yeah, there was some kind of tradition that we don't know how far it goes back, but it we've had a lot of these like wise men and women, which been in the UK and all over the world, also in different ways. They had a function up until these around 100 something years ago, when not many. Actually, a good friend of mine, his grandfather was the last of his kind of wise men on Bornholm, the island that you talked about.
Yeah. They have survived there for a long time. I know a guy in his 70s who remembers a wise woman from his youth, like in the 70s.
Yeah. But here in the mainland, it's we're not even on the mainland, but in the main part of the country, it's not much anymore. If you tell somebody on the street or ask somebody, do you know a wise woman, or they will look at you like, what the fuck? Even in small towns. And
So how rural is areas of Denmark? Is that, 'cause I have to say, I'll pretend, because I simply don't know. Is there concentrations of population, and then there's lots of sporadic? How what's the kind of densification like?
I get surprised, actually. I used to think that there was less rural than it actually is, but still it's not as rural as you would like, or how can you say?
No, I think it's always relative, but it's sort of comparable to UK.
Yeah, because
with some very dense areas and some less dense areas. I think our countryside is much larger than UK comparably.
You're more dense
to the rest of the country.
Yeah, because I live in Nottingham, which is famous for Sherwood Forest, but there's Sherwood Forest now is perhaps a 4 mile square, if that. It's awful.
But that's the interesting part about the UK, because I've traveled there a lot, and of course also know a lot of the legends which are more famous outside of the country. But you have much more active, compared to how big a population or how dense the population is, you have a lot more going on than here. For, I guess, there could be several reasons, but it's an interesting thing how the superstition kind of died here early. It's kind of one of my pet projects to try to find out.
That's an interesting point, actually, because I do know a lot of people who are within the paranormal, the supernatural, the ufology circle, and they are pretty replete across the entire country. You can always find a kind of group who has an interest in the unexplained somewhere. You always can.
So many ghosts.
It's true. And there was a while, I would say probably 2013, 14, where you couldn't find one. It was very, very small. Then there's a massive boom happened after that. And I think there's been a couple of like cable TV shows over here that are literally running almost 24-hour supernatural, most haunted like shows. So that's generated a lot of interest into those subjects again. There's the British MOD. A lot of files have come into since 2010. Freedom of information requests of UFOs are really popular. So that's kind of keeps the story up, keeps the story going. There's new stories that come out all the time due to declassified documents and so on.
But a good example, this about big cats in the UK, for example. I have so many sightings, and you can of course explain some parts with different kind of mentality. I don't know, but like you say, Nottingham, Sherwood Forest is so small. I don't know that is like a hotspot for these kind of sightings, but so many places where there are hotspots for these sightings, it's not really supposed to be, but it still is. It's not like that in Denmark.
No, you're absolutely right. There's so Lancashire, which is maybe about 40 miles that way from here. Lincolnshire as well has a lot of big cat sightings. Certainly down let's go to Bristol, which is the southwest of the country. There's a lot in that kind of area. It's quite open rural land there. Generally, the descriptions are pretty similar. It's usually a rather large cat. It appears to be a leopard or a lynx of some kind. I don't understand what they're feeding on. What if they can survive a long population there? I think during the 70s and 80s, a lot of the rich households had cats, in cages in the household. There's a town that's right next to the one I'm in called Hucknall, and there used to be a zoo there. The zoo got basically shut down in the 1980s due to cruelty to animals, and they literally just let the animals go. And that happened all across the country. There was
I read there was an act in 1976 or something like that.
So a lot of animals were just let go.
This law thing up on the 70s. No, but it's of course it can explain some of it, and there was some cats that were caught, but just the sheer amount of eyewitness. You talked about Bristol. I was in Bristol a year ago, and I just casually talked with one of we were there on a course, this kind of a educational course, and I just talked with him about the subject, and he said, "Oh yeah, I saw one. I was in the bus with my friend. It was around Liverpool, Manchester, I can't remember, and the bus stopped, and they looked up, and they saw a panther lying up on the bridge, and they both saw it. I was like, there was no doubt about it."
Yeah, and the thing is about cats love the sun, right? So you would think they'll be seen more often.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a whole topic, but we don't have these kind of things as crazy here, if you want to call it crazy, but as detailed or as much of it. It's not like that here, unfortunately, but there are other things.
Yeah, I was going to say, so the other thing. So, of course, the one thing I noticed you guys have a lot of is ufology topics. And the UFOs. Is that really a crazy thing over there? Is that a big topic?
No, actually not. I mean, it's another kind of these things that kind of died out, the superstition around them. I'm saying that kind of... not in a derogatory way, but I think that the belief in these things, they keep them going, and we had some organizations and some things here that did that the broad belief of it kind of died out a little bit. But looking through the old cases, we have a lot compared to the rest of the world. The same types of cases happened here for a long time. So, but it's not really so much. We have some UFO cases as part of the Hiddenmark project here, but it's so many of them cannot be pinpointed. So we don't have so much of it because it's so difficult to say that somebody saw something from someplace in a city, but you don't really know how is it located to that city because the next city could have seen the same. And so
it's also a question of we want to show people places. And it's not. I mean, a pavement where someone saw a UFO. It's not particularly interesting to go there.
Yeah,
compared to a pagan old tree or something like that.
You're right.
But we are going to have a section we're going to have a webpage coming up soon, and there will be a section that we've written a lot of detailed files, a lot which had not much exposure until now. So it's going to be a part. But the main thing is kind of making a map of these places. Just like Lasse say, you can go there and you can see this burial mound or this dolmen or chamber or.
So it might be a bit odd for me to say is that dolmens are a topic I'm not unfamiliar with. So I guess for the wider audience, how would you describe what a dolmen is and their cultural significance? What is that?
Lasse?
Yeah, I'm not particularly an expert in their background archaeologically, but there's a lot of megalithic burial sites strewn all over Denmark, especially in my area in the southeastern corner of Denmark. And there's usually a lot of local folklore attached to these places. A lot of them has been torn down to make a place for fields and farmlands over the years, or repurposing the stones in construction. But a lot of the surviving ones have had legends attached to them, and about someone from folklore being buried in there, or there being a treasure, or ghosts, or a lot of different kind of legends.
Many of them have survived because of the legends, actually. So.
Yeah. There's also don't destroy the burial mound, or you will get cursed.
Is there
like
Is there like maps of what those locations are currently, or Would the government have those?
Yeah. There's a lot of different ones. So we're trying to collect the ones that are most interesting to look at. A lot of them are just very destroyed, just part of rocks in a forest somewhere. Or
It's a bit of a balance, I guess, because some of them are really nice and they maybe not have the most interesting legend, and others have a super interesting legend and are not that much to look at.
Yeah.
So it's the whole spectrum.
We're trying to strike a balance.
Just one thing about these different kind of grave mounds and all this. I mean, the dolmens, you can say they are among the oldest, I guess, going back to 3,000 to 4,000 before Christ. And then you have the Jættestue, the passage graves. They come after, but they are built in a very short period, actually, of a few hundred years.
It's the funnel bigger culture.
Also, how do they structurally look differently?
They are bigger, and they have the passage graves have like a passage inside where you can like walk into like a chambered area.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
what would typically be inside?
The Bronze Age mounds after that period. Sorry.
So when you walk in one of these chambers, what would typically be found when they were excavated? Would it be like a single skeleton? Would there be like their possessions, or what would typically be found there?
Well, I mean, it's different. Lasse can probably. I think you're a lot more connected to that kind of the whole thing with the passage graves, but it was not. It was maybe more of a ritual area than it was actually a grave thing.
Yeah, it's a bit different. Some places it's very collective graves for a family or a village. In other places, it's more distinct into certain families or a chieftain or something like that.
Nice.
But I think they are very interesting locations to explore, especially the ones that have been renovated, so you can enter them and you'll need to crawl around for a lot of them. But I went to one a couple of days ago, which has a huge chamber inside. It's not so that you can stand up; you can sort of crunch in there. But it's a really impressive what's it called? Architectural feat for the time. It's huge stones, and it's very how do you say it? It's very neatly put.
Yeah, really. It's again, it's these passage graves were built in what is it, a 400-year period or something like that.
Yeah, the funnel bigger period.
The
Yeah, because in the UK you have kind of these odd graves too, where they're not always considered graves. That like the Stonehenge is like generally two pillars and then there's a teapot on top. There's loads of those kind of structures across the country, but it will just be two odd rocks, and then there'll be another one placed on top with no idea how these people lifted a 80-ton massive piece of slate or chalk stone and put it on the top, let alone balanced it, because it's hard enough to make like a card tower, let alone balancing a rock on these things. And you're going, how was this happen? And those kind of similar legends occur where maybe someone was buried underneath it, maybe it was a kind of shelter for someone, and people have strange experiences when they're sat underneath one. Well, that could be psychoactive. Could be they'll have an unusual dream if they choose to sleep underneath it. I wonder if that was the same kind of legends and experiences that people report there.
There's a good example of. I mean, one of the main reasons that we have so many of these legends is because of a handful of people who were walking around Denmark in the late 1800s. And the main guy is a guy called Evald Tang Christensen. He was a teacher, and he spent all his free time and money on visiting and collecting stories from the last of these families and people who had these beliefs, these folk beliefs. And he had a few interesting experiences, but one of them was that he fell asleep at a certain burial mound. He was so tired because he was just walking around the country all the time. And then he woke up by what sounded like the lid of one of these treasure chests inside the, and it was so. He felt that he was already awake, I guess, and then he heard it, and he was, well, this is the kind of stories I'm collecting all around, and suddenly I'm hearing one of them, because one of the big legends was this, that the people, the trolls, whatever, living in the mounds, would slam their treasure chests. This sound may have come from a real experience already, and people have connected it with this, but so these people who were collecting these stories actually also experienced some of these things while they were collecting them.
It should be noted that Denmark has a particularly large collection of folklore because of people like Ebeltang Christensen. It's I think, at least I've been told that it's far more than most other places in Europe and the world.
It is
very extensive records.
It's quite. You need to know what to look for, but they systematized it, and there are a lot of interesting things to still be discovered in those files.
And this is like the middle of the 19th century, right? Or is it early?
Yeah, until the end.
So the guy was getting around by carriage and by horse then, and trying to talk to everyone.
Yeah. Walking around from village to village.
Wow.
There's a saying that when he entered a village, he would listen to a dog shrieking by his dying owner's bed. Apparently that was a common thing. So he would go to where someone was, an old person was dying, and he would ask them about these legends and folklore before they were forgotten forever. And that was a common method of his.
That sounds like a guy with a lot of passion to keeping those stories alive.
Yeah, for sure.
He was so there, and he wasn't really accepted because he was from a lower class or like lower middle class. So it wasn't until years later that his contributions were really appreciated. There was some people who did far less walking around, who were sitting more at the desk. That helped him preserve these things, but I think he never really got. He never lived out his really full potential. But there are he has a collection of 8. These, I don't know if they're really reprinted anymore, but there have been many prints of these. It's almost like case books, and there are things that relate to definitely what we could say is UFO related activity today, and a lot of cryptozoological bordering cases. Of the Danish kind. It's basically the things that the people that he were visiting, maybe they didn't always believe it anymore, but definitely you can hear that they were being told by somebody who believed it or was close enough to. And some of these things may have a basis in some kind of reality.
Of course.
For sure.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. I mean, the fact that there's a person who actually made it their almost life mission to make those things recorded. And it's that kind of story that makes you inspired to do it yourself. Is that I need to make sure that these stories and our culture and our traditions and our folklore are not lost. And that's a powerful force to make you want to do that. I mean, I feel it myself, so I know where that's coming from. I'm
really impressed by someone like Ebeltang Christensen, especially because the dedication and the whole groundwork he kind of put for all this stuff for us to work with. Super cool.
But so how many more people do you think are like yourselves who are putting that kind of things together to record folklore? Is there many people who are willing to say let's help?
In some level, you mean other people in Denmark who are?
So I meant in Denmark. Yeah. So that's the country. Do you have much of a network of people who are really interested in doing the similar thing as you guys are doing?
We don't really, but we would like to have. That's kind of what I hope to have actually. I think a lot of people. There are a guy here, a guy there who has probably huge knowledge about specific areas of these kind of things, but we haven't connected with them yet. It's very little of this is funded in a big way. There are some exceptions. This underjordiske phenomenon on Bornholm, it was funded in a big way by the government actually, but it's not really in that sense something that people maybe do it more out of curiosity, or I don't know. I'm really hoping that with this project we can also attract somebody who can say, "Hey, I actually found out a lot about this. Maybe you should."
Yeah, local historians and stuff like that.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean,
Even if they don't believe it.
I was going to say, so what's been the reaction so far from what people have... So when you've presented your information to people, what's been kind of their reactions to the stories that you've been telling?
I think overwhelmingly positive, especially sometimes we share our posts in the area where they're from, and a lot of people think it's really interesting. They've walked by this place for all their lives and didn't know the story about it. So I think people, as I said earlier, people like living in an interesting place, and our stories help make their place interesting, or at least the sharing of them.
Yes, did I read, and I might be incorrect, that you were looking to produce kind of like audio tours, is that right?
Yeah, we actually only have one right now, but we've begun to work on a few others. There's some different reasons why it's a little more complicated than we first thought. Well, first of all, we wanted to make it a little more touristically available, and because of the coronavirus situation, not much tourism. The other thing is it has to be interesting enough to take the trip in itself. I mean, from point to point. Some of these points can be a lot further from each other than you first think.
Yes,
So that's a little bit of a challenge, but I think as soon as we gather enough points during the years, then suddenly we can see a cluster of things, and then we can start to move more like, let's say, efficiently around it.
Yeah. When you get enough out into the country, there's a lot of distance between locations, so it's easy in a big city like Copenhagen, where you perhaps have to walk for a couple of minutes until the next story shows up.
Yeah,
so that's one problem.
It's other kinds of attractions in the city. I mean, it's you will have some old houses, but you won't have these monuments that go that far back, or these like these crosses that are raised different places in the country to commemorate something that nobody remembers, but there is some curse kind of thing related to it. All that is not in the center. So we are focusing on something more like how statues and different buildings had some stories connected to them, which could be also bordering on poltergeist and ghost stories, which there are a lot of, actually.
That's interesting. So I guess, would the audience therefore be more of those kind of solo adventurers, or those groups that would benefit from that, rather than, say, a tour?
Yeah, it's a good. What do you think, Lasse?
I think it's a positive thing that it's very flexible, and especially with how a lot of tourism happens these days. You want to make your own adventure. You want to find the unique places on your own, and I think we can provide that.
Yeah.
So you can go searching yourself. Also, as a Dane, exploring your area, or exploring areas of your country you didn't know, but also as a tourist, you can take the plane to Copenhagen and rent a car and go out into the country and skip all the main tourist attractions, and really explore some hidden locations.
I was thinking in my head, how does that look if I was having to find a bit of technology like a phone or something? How would I get those stories? And I guess you've probably brainstormed that yourselves. I would think it's some kind of like Google Map-like program where you have everything pinpointed. Then when you get there, it plays the audio or the story, and then you can act it out or follow it through. Is that what you guys are looking to do?
Yeah, I mean, the first introduction, I used a lot of time back a few years ago to check out all these options that already were existing. Because in the beginning, it was a little bit like, should we make an app? Should we get an app made? But making an app is like huge, and it's very expensive. And it was more like, okay, maybe we can find something already existing that can do what we're after. So we found this called Voice Map. It's not the only one of its kind, but I think it's the most straightforward and the least buggy of the ones I've tried. So there you can make your tours and you can upload them to them. and for a fee, every time you sell a tour, every time somebody says, "Okay, I'm going to try this," and download it, there is a split of the amount, and in that way, it's like a 50-50 because they provide a lot of the promotion through things like TripAdvisor, and so people would search there and they would look for tours in Denmark, and we would come up, and it's been really good ratings. I mean, we've had only 1 4-star, the rest is 5 out of 5.
Okay.
So that's, I'm surprised so many people really caught on to it. I guess it was what they were looking for. So.
Yeah, but it sounds really good. Hey, so what are you drinking there, man? What you got?
Got an Outback 10.
Oh, good choice.
Excellent.
So mine unfortunately is in my kitchen all the way over there, so I can't quite get mine.
Just taking a very mild brew today. So.
I do have cold coffee though, but I guess this is not good.
Not good. Not good.
Oh man, so it's really good. It's really interesting that there is so much culture and tradition. Because when I think, I guess, of Denmark, that kind of area, I guess naturally mine goes to Vikings and so on, the Danes. So would those stories of those characters also play into your historical tours?
Sort of. There's a lot of runestones that we would certainly include, but there's and a lot of we call them ship burials. It's like a ship made out of stones, like a burial mound.
Yeah.
Certainly unique places. So we'll add those, but not a lot of locations mentioned in the sagas and stuff like that. We haven't looked into it yet, at least, but it doesn't play that huge a part in later folklore, at least not directly. Perhaps some of these stories have origins in the Viking Age or thereabouts and have survived in other ways. Certainly, a lot of the Norse gods have survived in folklore under different names, like. A lot of them turned into Catholic saints or Catholic saints with similar characteristics were worshipped where a Norse god was before.
And there's a lot of that in the UK too. Certainly, as you go west across England certainly into Ireland, you find that it's like Celtic Christianity, as it's called, where you see a merging of both faiths together, where characters and locations have Viking elements and Celtic and Gaul elements with Christian characteristics, and it's quite fascinating to watch. Some of the buildings are really beautiful. You can see the inspiration of what they were trying to do, what they were trying to get at, and what was motivating them to do that was faith and beauty. But yeah, the stories survive in other ways. They evolve.
Exactly.
Yeah, Lasse, you maybe remember his name, but there's at least one person here who's arguing that actually Denmark never became Christian.
Yeah. I'm reading a book about a guy called Flemming Christian Nielsen, and his main argument is that paganism never died out. They just called their gods different names and continued the traditions well into the 19th century.
Yeah, I've heard some of the stuff here. I mean, I'm a member of, I'm formerly a member of Pagan Pride here, which was an organisation that sought to celebrate pagan roots across the country, and so a lot of people from the magical and the occult and the esoteric were very much connected together, who would come to this festival in Nottingham, and it ran for like 8-9 years, and I basically was a logistics manager. I made the events happen.
So you're a lot into this, okay.
Yeah, so it's really good to see all these different people come from all these different places, and here's me like I'm just a sponge with this information, talking to the right people, and that's what I kind of tapped into. So I managed to speak to some really, I had to use the word high people, but people of notable value within that community, within that pagan, the druidic circles, the magical, the mysteries and stuff. And I could love just spending hours just talking with them. So
I know in Anglesey also, which was I guess the Druid central for many years. Anglesey in Wales, the island. I have an interesting UFO story from there actually.
Oh, cool.
Maybe I can mention it later in the program. Or
yeah, if you want to, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, because do you guys want to focus more on the paranormal side, or is it more of the the legends and the history, the myth?
I have a definite interest in the, let's say, paranormal side of it. That's for sure. I think we all have, but to different degrees. I think I have more like a Fortean kind of outlook on it.
Same.
Not like a all one size fits all kind of outlook, but in a way, I am kind of looking for patterns and how things can be explained. I am, but I'm interested in these unexplained elements too, which are like still out of reach of immediate understanding.
Is that the same with you, Lasse?
I think I have more of an amateur historian interest in this.
Yeah.
And for me, it's a lot of it's mainly about portraying these stories and getting them out to a wider audience. And certainly, I think I had a goal of making the landscape interesting again.
Yeah.
I mean, we're one of the safest countries on earth, and we have a high level of social equality, and it's all very nice, and it can get a bit boring. So I think it's a goal of mine to how do you say, re-enchant the landscape, and a huge part of that is finding these locations that have a lot of folklore about them and are really interesting and unique and almost forgotten, or I mean, not very appreciated, and communicating these to people.
Yeah. Our interests overlap in different ways. It's interesting because I also don't know Lasse's like full beliefs, I guess, but it's different from mine for sure because I have a background in like ufology and reading so many years about cryptozoology, and I'm looking at it in maybe a little bit different way, but I basically have the same approach. I feel that I was sitting like, damn, it can't be that Denmark is so boring. There must be something out there that we can find. And then you start looking into it, and you see, okay, there are these areas. It's just that the interest or the belief around them, it kind of got cut off at some point. But we really do have some interesting stories. We can mention something like the what we call it, the Ole Buller. It's a name which actually maybe has, we'll say, relates to Thor.
Okay, so that's a good place to start, isn't it? I guess Thor is a very known character. I guess Marvel's kept it alive and well as a a continuing evolution of that character's name into folklore and now to pop culture. So, shall we start there as a story?
No, it was just we can actually, but it was just to mention one of these kind of areas which was unique in Denmark, which I wouldn't have imagined existed. There is this stone head in the top of a church, 100 kilometers west of Copenhagen, which it's not really something super spectacular when you first look at it, but the stories around them go from that it was a giant that was killed, and people used the head when it rained with the water. When it came to the head, they used it to heal themselves and drank it, and it happened in Denmark. It probably happened till 200 years ago. So there are these areas still around in the landscape, and even a lot on churches, which have these pagan rituals actually connected to them, basically. But I mentioned it about Thor because some people have connected this head to some kind of a worship of Thor, a Thor cult or something. But we can definitely talk about the gods. I'm just not much. Lasse knows a lot more about that than me. So,
do you want to jump in on that, Leslie?
Yeah. As I was saying earlier, a lot of the pagan gods got sort of appropriated by the Christian church, or perhaps the population found saints that fitted the characteristics of the deities and worshipped them instead of the gods. And one famous example is Saint Olav, a Norwegian saint who was popular in Denmark and Sweden and Norway, I think he was a jarl on Orkney, or the Shetland Islands or something like that. And he was sort of a Scandinavian saint, an early saint. He was very popular with the peasant population in the country. I mean, most of the country was countryside back then, but there's a lot of similarities in his worship and the worship of Thor. And I remember reading a story recently where in ancient times, before the first seed was put into the ground, an idol of Thor was carried over the field. And a couple of centuries later, the same thing happened, but it was like an icon of Saint Olaf. So he just took over the responsibilities of Thor. And this has happened in a lot of places. If we look at the holy springs or the holy wells found all over the country, natural springs which have been giving healing properties in folklore, these places were so popular even until as late as 100 years ago in some places. And a lot of the archaeology has shown that they've been used since perhaps the Bronze Age and certainly in the Viking Age. And a lot of the place names can be traced back to pagan gods, not Christian gods. Even sometimes they've gotten rebranded, and some of them have not. And you could see it's I forgot, was it Tiersted or?
Yeah, the Tibirke,
Tibirke, yeah.
Toftekilde, Tofte Spring, yeah.
Yeah, which could be a tribute to the god Tyr. So there's a lot of place names with pagan origin all over Denmark, of course, and a lot of evidence of these holy springs having been used and visited before Christianity, and then after Christianity it was Saint this or that spring instead of a pagan god. Yeah. And this is the same thing about the trees. I mean, there's a lot of example of how Christianity certainly became the new religion, but it took over a lot of the old responsibilities, or you did as you used to, so to speak.
I've actually been listening. I've been listening to a book actually that you guys might find really interesting. It's by Brian Marinescu, who is he's a. I should get his name correctly. It's Muraescu. The book is called The Immortality Key. It's called The Secret History of the Religion with No Name. It's quite a new release actually, and Graham Hancock wrote the foreword for that. I've got it on Audible. It's actually read by the author as well, and it talks about how, particularly in the Middle East, that he's trying to find. He's a classicist, and he's also a scholar and a historian with a bit of a sense of humour about things. So he's trying to find the origin of the kuklion, which is a kind of beverage drink from ancient Greece. It was used at Demeter's temple, and it was given to people in as a sacrament in their worship of Dionysus, and how that evolved to become the Christian Eucharist. Basically about how ergot-infused beer and spiked wine effectively has evolved, and how that was giving people hallucinogenic experiences, or a psychoactive drink, basically. That is how the characteristics of different gods were transmitted between areas, is that they were having a quite profound experience through the beer or the wine that they were having. So, and he was talking in that book, particularly when Christianity was starting to grow, how it was the same, I don't want to say the same people, but the people they were showing the sacrament to were then starting to distribute it under the name of Christ, basically. So well before, it was in the eras of Demeter and in the eras of Apollo and so on, and Dionysus, there were as Christianity was coming in, the sacrament method and what they were doing was the same, but effectively it was renamed. So the experience was still the same. The psychoactive experience where they were having a relationship with God or the gods was still continuing, but it was kind of under a new brand, a new name. And so it kind of transmitted over time, and that's why it's so, not necessarily the religion is so widespread, it's just the celebration of what they were having is really being celebrated. So that drugged wine or that ergot-infused beer was what actually is being celebrated, and that's what got so wide, particularly into Spain, into the south of the UK, across most of Asia, going down into Africa, is that the experiences they were having the drug they were taking, effectively, the hallucinogenic experiences, actually, what was being transmitted. So the gods were almost interchangeable because they were having the same experience. So when I hear you saying about, well, that this god transformed into this one, you've got to powerfully change the culture there. But the culture doesn't really change. Their experiences still stay the same. It just gets rebranded and renamed just because there's a new politics are in power, really, half the time.
For sure.
Well, it's really, I mean, I find it really interesting how these things originate and spread. And the thing about the Saints, it's also the same in places South America, Cuba, with the Santeria and Palamayombe and all this, where it was another kind of guys that this came into. In Denmark, I don't know if we had that much of. There may also have been a psychedelic tradition that is more strong than we know. It's definitely possible, where they used it actively to kind of ease people into new. It's possible if you go far enough back around the church time. I don't really know what actively happened, but definitely there was a balancing act for the church to find out which parts were like, which parts can we include and which parts do we have to kind of like make some resistance towards it.
And which do we have to give up removing, like Christmas, Yule, you know, the great pagan light feast.
They couldn't get rid of the Holy Springs for two reasons, because one, okay, they were very, very popular. People found use of them, but also they found a way that to get donations in that way. So it became like the church became dependent on the donations from the pagan springs, and they kind of made it a little bit more easy by putting a saint name on it. But as soon as we hit the Reformation with the Protestantism coming, it became difficult again, because then even the saints were not okay. So it's like, the tradition continuing. It's very interesting to see how it morphs over the years.
It's really interesting we talk about, say, like Yule and the celebrations that happen around that time. When you see, like, I guess what is often known as the time of misrule, which is like from, I think from December 25th to January the 6th, which is generally where things can get a little bit cheeky, you can get a bit crazy. It's where traditionally the jester would take control of the court, as it would be often called. It's like
Saturnalia.
Saturnalia, that's right. So it's the kingdom of misrule, and then on January the 6th, it goes back to normal. And I found similar celebrations to be found often by. It's when you would clean your house out, as it were. You would have your house banishing ceremonies, and you'd find the same patterns are repeated across the world in the same kind of periods of time. For sure. I guess
there's one.
You go for this one.
There was one interesting that Simon, our third person who's not here, he made me aware of, that on our royal emblem, the royal shield, we have these wild men with clubs, and it's really difficult to find out why these wild men are on that. Greece has it as well, but it's something you have a lot of a tradition also in the UK, and this. They've been made. I think Richard Freeman and others have made, and Carl Schuker have made this connection to, like these in the UK they're called wood woses, these wild men of the woods, which kind of relate to borderline Bigfoot stories, and so it's possible we even had some of these in our history, because there are some stories about a famous clan here who got their wealth after meeting a wild man in the woods, and so there are these kind of. They're far back in time, but you can still find them, these ideas about wild people living in the woods. And the Santa Claus is another kind of these things that these people, figures who grew out of this wild man tradition. There's a book written about it, Santa Claus, Last of the Wild Men.
That's interesting.
So it's super interesting. It's,
because obviously there's the celebration of Krampus, which I think was yesterday. I saw advertised all across Facebook. Santa Claus, and I think that's almost interconnected with this time of year about a person coming to your house and potentially dropping stuff through your chimney because it was the only way to get stuff to you, like a secret message or some kind of like secret berries that you could have. And I was reading something the other day that so I think it's a caribou, which is related to a reindeer, when it eats a certain kind of berry, that when it obviously excretes the berry, it actually changes its chemical. And when you eat it, it gives you a real high, as it were, and that's what people were doing. People were using that as a kind of hallucinogenic experience. Is eating berries that had passed through a caribou, and that's the reason why they used to fly.
That's a Sami thing from northern Norway and Sweden,
right.
where the reindeers would eat mushrooms. I think psychedelic mushrooms, and you would drink their urine, and it would, or I don't remember if it was mushrooms, but it likely was.
It likely was some sort of psychedelic plant for sure.
Yeah.
So Schnapnir and so on, are they 8-legged reindeer?
Yeah, it's a new idea about a new thought, what it really is all about. But here, a lot of our traditions here, as far as I understand, the last 100 years have come from Charles Dickens.
Oh, really?
Yeah, not all. We don't have things like the Yule log. I think you have that in the UK. Or?
Yeah, we have. It's a traditional. I guess we don't have it so much anymore because all the fireplaces got turned into gas. But traditionally, before that, you would have like a thick log that you'd burn all Christmas.
Yeah. We didn't have that, but we had so many things from the Christmas tale or Christmas story, what it's called. People here think that it's something, we've always done this. But if you go 100 years, a little more than 100 years back, there were different traditions completely and songs. And so. Yeah.
If you go back to the 7th or the 18th century, there's a lot of really, to our ears, strange Christmas rituals. Especially for the young people in the village.
Okay.
And there's a lot of they're called julelege, Christmas games or Yule games. They are as a borderline sexual activities for the young people of the village, and they are very well documented, and they are believed to be a remnant of some sort of fertility midwinter ritual, but to these people they were just. It's what we do on Christmas. We play these games. And I think that's one example of how these things have survived and how, again, you said that it's a mischievous time of the year.
Yeah. So what other kind of... what else happens at this kind of year in, like, say, Denmark traditionally? What would typically happen? Like, let's say, a family home. What traditions would be kind of spoke about?
We have the Christmas tree. It's a center of everything, I guess. You can't have Christmas without that tree. And one thing which I've noticed, because I've had a lot to do with also young people from around Europe. I do a lot of international projects, youth projects, and we are the only one, as far as I can see, who dances around the tree, like in a circle.
Interesting.
Because we had to demonstrate it as kind of part of a cultural exhibition. And people were like, what are you doing? So you don't have the tree? Yeah, we have the tree, but we don't necessarily walk around it in a circle without purpose. That was a little bit like,
it's
okay.
Really, it's interesting you say that, because I think as a child, I can remember that people did that. I can remember that people used to join their hands together and they would walk around in a circle so many times and back the other way. That's a remnant in my mind, but
you don't do it? You don't do it?
Not generally, no. Same with mistletoe above a door is quite an interesting celebration. That's not so much done now because mistletoe is so hard to come by. I've never seen it on sale when I was a child.
It's not so...
When I was a child, it was pretty replete everywhere. Like greengrocers would often sell it like independent shops, but they've pretty much all gone now. So that's probably why we don't get it any longer. And tradition was you'd hang it above your door, so when people come in, you would kiss, and then you'd greet them when they would come in.
Fertility ritual.
Yeah.
Again, it has some relation to older.
An interesting thing in Scandinavia and in Denmark is the association of nisser, elves, gnomes with Christmas.
Yeah.
Because if you go back into the legends and the folklore, these were not a Christmas thing. These were just a house spirit that you need to stay on good terms with, and would help you with the harvest and would bring good luck to your house and make sure the lightning didn't struck down and it didn't burn down. And otherwise, if you didn't give offerings, today the popular offering is rice pudding. for the Nisse, but back in the day it probably was the same, or porridge or something like that. And you had to stay in good terms with the house spirit. Otherwise, very bad things could happen. And this thing has survived, but as a Christmas tradition now, you don't hear of them the rest of the year. That's pretty interesting as well.
It is, because I wonder where that would have began. Is that there would a house spirit in the form of a small being would come to your house and would help you and give you berries and food and have something warm for your house. And when you were talking earlier about subterranean creatures and small people, I wonder if they'd somehow tie in together in some way. There's a couple of legends here about small beings who live in caves and in woodslands here. So
you see the difference between here and Norway, for example, with these creatures, because we have also trolls here, but in Norway it was much more easy to imagine that trolls could be these big creatures because they have rock mountains and all this, and we are so flat. So our like creatures of the humanoid kind, they are much smaller in stature actually, and especially these very small ones like the Nisse. It's very much a house thing, and maybe close to a little mound it was living, and then it would go around the house, not just in Christmas but all year round. And
or live in the house, live in the attic or something like that.
Yeah. There's actually one more thing which when you were talking about this, Kristian, about the tradition from Greece and all this, the folklorists here around 100 years ago also found out that one of our most popular legends is actually one of these about one of these gnomes living in the house.
Okay.
It came all the way from Greece and started as a kind of a story about Pan, the god Pan, who was dead. There was a woman here, a folklorist. She traced it all through Germany, all the way down to Greece, and it mutated all the way around Denmark to the point that we even have like at least 20 or 30 variations of the same one.
Oh, really?
It's something like a man goes by a mound and he hears a voice from inside the burial mound that somebody has died, and then he goes home and he tells his wife, "Hey, did you hear that blah blah is dead?" And suddenly the little creature comes out from the stove or someplace like, "Oh, is it true? Is he dead? I have to get going." And he goes. This story has been like a meme from the ancient times, which is gone through. It's super interesting.
They are called Vati legends, if people want to.
Yeah.
W-A-T-I.
Interesting. I wonder what the spirit was up to. You think of the psychology of it. So that person's dead now. I've got to go.
Yeah, or something like. It's a good question. I don't know exactly for that one, but there are many you can interpret in different ways like that.
But it's interesting that after the Christianization of Scandinavia, the worship of trolls and Nissa and Vedder and other supernatural beings or just house spirits and nature spirits, it was something the church couldn't live with. So they became associated with demons and the like. And it's interesting that these creatures have survived all through up until recent times in folklore, but they have become evil, sort of in the legends and something to avoid. And there's a lot of legends about trolls and about how back in the day in the 17th century and stuff like that, the wives would make a cross in the dough when they were baking bread, so the troll couldn't touch it because there was a cross on it.
Yeah. It still happens here. They still do that, yeah. I didn't actually realize that's that interconnectedness. So that happens here too. They put a small cross on the top of a pie.
Yeah, and the same in the grain, a pile of grains.
Oh right, that's really intriguing actually.
You have to remember we had a lot of back and forth between UK also. I mean, so there are probably some shared things from back that time.
For sure, a lot of things, a lot of similar legends. There's a popular thesis that all of these spirits, it's basically ancestor worship in some level, and that's what a popular research project found. Thomas mentioned it earlier. A research project of the subterraneans on Bornholm, which got a lot of press because the story was that some scientists got funds to research, like elves. And it got portrayed as if he was to research these obviously made up things, but he was researching into the folklore surrounding them and how they play part in local folklore and local landscape descriptions. And I mean, one of his main theses was that it's a form of ancestor worship that has just continued for 1,000 years or more.
I wonder if that's why they were like the house elf. Is that tradition where it would be your grandmother?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Living in the burial mounds of the ancestors and stuff like that.
Because people were buried there, so it would make sense that it was somebody's relation. And
someday they are a troll or an elf.
It also has to be said that actually we, because of our very early securing these burial mounds, a lot of them have not been excavated, so we don't actually know what's inside a lot of the ones. It can be really interesting stuff, but I think they're waiting for the technology to actually get an idea from the outside what is in there. But it's a big no-no. You cannot dig in them and make excavations. So we have actually a blank page in many of these cases.
So I guess it would be an X-ray scan or a LiDAR scan. Might give you a kind of a shape or anything like that inside. But
like the pyramids and I'm not sure actually. It's not an area I really should check up on it.
I think it's also because of it's a costly affair to do an excavation. So and there's a lot of places you could potentially excavate.
Yeah.
So that's why a lot of them are remained unexcavated.
That's what I'm reminded of right now is that I've got a copy of Legendary Times, which is the magazine put out by Giorgio Tsoukalos, the guy who does Ancient Aliens. He has a book.
Yeah, with the hair, the guy with the hair.
Yeah, that's the one, the guy with the hair. Yeah, so in that, I've got an issue of that. Cause I submitted some stuff to that magazine, and it was talking about mounds that are across. There's actually a lot of mounds across China that are relatively unknown, and there's an active process of actually destroying them and digging them up, and because they don't want the population to find out what's there. They don't want them to have any spiritual any kind of connection to their history of the past. There's an active process of them being destroyed, and how awful that is when it's supposed to be part of the world history. It's the fact that they're found as far away as the Far East, let alone here in the
Middle East, the Gulf area.
Yeah.
Bahrain and Kuwait and these around the Gulf, there was a lot of connection between Danish archaeologists back in the 40s and 50s. Actually, a lot of our early diplomacy with many of these countries were based on these archaeological dealings, because we taught them a lot about what these mounds were, because an island like Bahrain, which is connected to Saudi Arabia now, I lived there for 3 years when I was a kid. I didn't know it until later, but the whole south of the island is completely littered with burial mounds of the same style as here. It's the same tradition, basically, of course, in the sand. But it's interesting how they found these relations all the way, like you say, in China and the Middle East, and there's been this kind of movement of this tradition.
Yeah. So I wonder what the if there's similar traditions to be found in America, particularly the Southern Americas.
I'm not sure actually how it is with the mounds, but there are some. I'm not actually sure. It's not so much something I.
I think I remember reading about burial mounds in Northern America at some point, but
Northern America.
Yeah, North America for sure. So I was kind of wonder what there is the south of the.
Yeah, northern there is. I know, because they try to connect it with Native Americans, but they have had to look a bit further in some cases. There's a lot of theories put forward that I don't have really an overview of, but it's super interesting what is going on.
I was reading about an excavation that happened into the Clovis culture, which is the pre-Native American, the general culture that may have existed. That's what archaeologists put it to. They call it the Clovis culture. They dig a 15-foot square pit of a regular place, and they found there's like axes and flints at a certain depth. But so the scientists thought it'd be really interesting to actually dig down to the 25 feet before his excavation was due, and still found stuff even further and further and further down. That it shows that there was a pre Columbus culture, a pre-Native American culture going back almost 150,000 years of people or doing activity in this area in the Clovis caves. And it's like, well, so how far does humanity really go back in a way that's organised? And I think that's a big question about our culture and our world heritage. No one really knows, and we keep finding, keeps getting older. There's lots of things that keep popping up that appear out of time due to the method that we've got across the public museums. Their archaeological record, we keep finding stuff that's almost out of sync with what we know. And I think we're being challenged to go back and rethink and re-examine it.
Yeah. No, it's... I don't know how much of that kind of thing also is here, but it's definitely there are some unanswered questions, to put it mildly.
Yeah.
About not only the age of many things, but also like the real purpose of a lot of the things that we talked about the passage graves earlier. There are a few people even in Denmark who have tried to connect it to astronomical correlations and. In the same way as people have done with Stonehenge, in a smaller scale, but there are some value to that track for sure. I think.
Yeah, ley lines and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That is definitely a thing that has been explored here as well.
So so on that topic of ley lines, I've actually got one of those books written by that guy. The old dirt track, which is where
Alfred Watkins or something.
That's right. Yes,
yeah.
So,
I'd like to read them.
So I think it's really interesting how he realised that there's things that are built in certain lines that even if there's a mountain there or a river there, they appear to be in a straight line with each other, particularly sites of historical or cultural context. I think at the time he saw churches and buildings and burial sites and forts that were all in straight lines when there really shouldn't have been. It didn't make much sense at the time. And it wasn't until he scaled it up across the entire country he found there was quite a few long tracks like that.
The question is, was these things built along these lines because already something was going on, or were they built to make something go on, or like what came first? And
it's a powerful story. I mean, I think people will put a line across anything nowadays, and I think it's a bit of a mess now. But I think if you look at what he highlighted, because obviously he was an amateur adventurer, as it were, and he was like, "Well, we can see these, we don't know what they are," and he was putting forward his own theories about it. But so, is there a lot of that kind of across Denmark where sites line up with each other? Is that a case up there too, with these ancient sites and megalithic sites?
I'm actually not sure.
What I know is that there's a point of where some of the places were built because they were built high up in the landscape, so they could be viewed majestically, and you could also view from them. But there has been a few attempts to make these on Bornholm, I know, but I'm not sure how accepted they are in archaeological circles.
Fair enough.
But it could be interesting to check up on. It's an article I found about it a few months ago that I put on a back burner for.
You put it in the bookmarks, and then I'll come back to it.
It's like files upon files in the folders, and
I'm the same. I really am. Just put things back. I'll remember that, and then months later, it's like, I remember. Yeah.
And it's a problem sometimes because then you forget that you did it 2 years ago, and you suddenly scan a whole book and shit, I scanned it 2 years ago, and you have to have some kind of system at some point. Or
you have to have a system.
Yeah.
Try at least.
Oh man! So if people wanted to find out what you're about, where can they find out about your websites, and how can they get in touch with you?
Well, our website, we're working on one now, which hopefully comes up in around April. This is the kind of the deadline we set, and it's going to be hiddenmark.dk. So DK is the domain name for Denmark.
Yeah.
But so far we have we're using the Instagram mostly, a little bit of Facebook, but Instagram is kind of the main, because it's a lot centered around pictures of these areas, and it's a good short format for the stories.
Yeah.
So what is it, Les? Is it Instagram.com/hit_Denmark?
Yeah, I think it's one or the other. I think the Facebook is like all out hit Denmark in one word, and on the Instagram is with an underscore between hit and Denmark. But it will probably
Hiddenmark.
I will check now.
It is a wordplay like on hidden and Denmark. You caught it, but a lot of people don't catch it actually.
No, it's good. I think it's really good because I think that's the most important thing. Where can people find about what you're about, what you're posting about, what you're talking about, and I guess more importantly, how can people get involved if they live nearby?
Well, drop us a message on Facebook or on Instagram. Really, we started this project to be like an open, like a big tent kind of organization. We would love to have people locally in different areas where we can't cover it, who could maybe go out, take pictures, contribute in that way. Doesn't have to be in a big way even, but if they're interested in these kind of stories, and they should maybe think that we can look in our area and see how we can put it to use. So I would encourage people definitely to do that. Also, people from outside Denmark, if they feel it's possible, it's for sure it could be interesting. Somebody would look into stuff. Of course, there is a little bit of a limitation because most of the sources will be in Danish, but still we can help along with it. So.
No, that's really good. I mean, it's really popular. People really touch their traditions, what makes their area interesting, what people can do and find out, like adventurers who want to go on a hiking holiday to go, right, let's go walk out that way, listen to some stuff along the way, let's learn a bit about the local history and mythology and culture and traditions, because hey, that's what I love to do. So if I go somewhere, I always like tap up what's local and go check out what's off the beaten track. I love that stuff.
Yeah. And in that case, our webpage will be the main attraction, because what we're trying to build is a map of these places.
Yeah, basically. We didn't mention that. We're trying to make a different map that we can integrate on the site, but also standalone. It's a bit tricky how we're going to do it, but we have some ideas, and hopefully it will go.
No, I hope so. They're really good. I think the idea of like going on an adventure holiday to discover another country, I think is fantastic. It's something I'd like to do once this COVID restrictions all lifted. I think I might go and check it out myself. I'd love to go to Denmark, and I'd love to go and explore that area. So if you guys,
you're very welcome.
I'll come by for sure. Get some of that. Get some alcohol behind you.
Yeah, we'll take you around as far as we can go in the time you're here.
Oh, dude, that'd be amazing if we could do that. That'd be cool. Because I think that's what really needs to happen. People need to get out there, to stop being inside. Either COVID being the way it is, but we want to get outside. If you liked this video, perhaps share it with your friends, your family, and colleagues, helping great people find great content. Thank you.